Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through sources, research, all sorts of material, really, and pull out the key nuggets to help you get informed, fast. Today, we're diving into the life of Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, who most people know as Veer Savarkar, an incredibly complex figure. And the big question, I suppose, is, how do we actually understand him? Warrior, saint, or, something else entirely. We've got a lot of different sources here to help navigate his, well, very dynamic and debated life. Our mission, to distill the key insights and help you connect the dots.
Yeah, it's true. Savarkar is definitely one of those figures who sparks really strong reactions, different interpretations, makes him hard to pin down. So our goal here is to look at all these different facets, his life, his ideas, and importantly, try to look at the source material impartially. We're aiming to synthesize all this information, help you see the layers.
It really is striking how early he started, isn't it? This revolutionary spirit. Born 1883, Bagar, Maharashtra. And right away, almost, he's organizing. Our sources mention this youth group, Mitramela, which then becomes Abhinav Farad, a secret society, right?
Wow.
Focused on kicking the British out.
Exactly. And not just through talk, either. He believed in armed resistance from quite early on, and he was deeply inspired by Giuseppe Mazzini, the Italian revolutionary. He saw parallels, Italy's fight for unity, India's fight for freedom.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
How quickly he went from being a young organizer to, well, a full-fledged revolutionary thinker. It seems incredibly fast.
Well, what's fascinating here is the intellectual groundwork he was laying. Even in his early 20s, when he went to London, supposedly for law, he actually dove headfirst into revolutionary thinking. And that's when he wrote The First War of Indian Independence, 1857, really controversial stuff. In it, he basically threw out the British story, the whole mutiny label. He argued, no, this was India's first united fight for freedom.
So he wasn't just questioning it, he was actively rewriting that history.
Precisely. It wasn't just academic history writing. It was an ideological statement, a way to reframe the entire colonial narrative. Powerful stuff.
An incredible intellectual journey already. But what came next really tested him, didn't it? Forged his later thinking, his radical ideas. Well, they obviously got him noticed. He was arrested in 1909. Something about the assassination of a British official.
Yes, alleged involvement. And then came the sentence in 1911. And it was severe. 2 life terms, 50 years total, deportation to the cellular jail in the Andamans.
The infamous Kala Pani.
Exactly. And the conditions, our sources paint a grim picture. Chained, beaten, starved, just brutal.
It's hard to even comprehend surviving that. So how did he cope? How did his mind function in that darkness?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting how this period shaped him. Despite the physical horror, his mind stayed active, resilient. He found ways, writing poetry on the walls with charcoal, memorizing thousands of lines, apparently, mentally drafting ideas, philosophy, politics.
Amazing mental discipline.
It really is. Now, this brings us to those prison petitions he wrote. They're hugely controversial.
Right, often seen as begging for release, compromising his principles.
That's the criticism, yes. But there's a counter-argument put forward by some historians. They suggest these were tactical moves, strategic. The idea being, Savarkar realized just being a martyr in jail wouldn't free India. He needed to get out, to continue the struggle differently. Strategy was key.
So, not giving up, but shifting tactics.
Yeah.
A calculated risk, perhaps?
That's the interpretation, yes. That it was about finding a way anyway to continue his mission outside those walls. It's a perspective that adds another layer of complexity, certainly.
That idea of a strategic pivot in prison is fascinating. So how did this influence him after release? He was under surveillance, right? Banned from politics.
Yes, strict surveillance, no political activity allowed. But as you said, his mind, his pen, they didn't stop. And this leads us to a really crucial piece for understanding his vision. His book from 1923, Hindutva, Who is a Hindu?
Ah, yes, Hindutva, a term that carries so much weight today. What was his original concept?
Well, this raises that important question about culture, religion, national identity in his thinking. As laid out in the sources, Savarkar's Hindutva wasn't strictly religious. He framed it more around shared identity, common ancestry, a shared civilization rooted in India.
Okay, so cultural and civilizational, not just theological.
That's the argument. But this is where it gets complicated and the controversy really flares up. Critics argue that this definition, by its nature, excluded Muslims and Christians from, the core idea of Indianness. They see it as inherently divisive.
Sowing seeds of division, essentially.
Yep, that's the accusation, that it defined India too narrowly. But then supporters argue his focus was cultural unity, seeing India defined by a shared heritage, a common Pitrubhumi or fatherland, and Punyabhumi or holy land, which tied it to the land itself, not just a particular way of praying.
A land-based identity rooted in history and culture.
That's the core of their interpretation. But there's another layer here that's quite surprising given the Hindutva context.
Which is?
His personal beliefs. Our sources emphasize he was an atheist, a rationalist. He believed in science.
An atheist rationalist championing Hindutva. How's that square?
Exactly. He openly questioned rituals, rejected blind faith. He was also a strong critic of untouchability and the caste system, which was quite radical for many revolutionaries at the time.
So he's attacking traditional religious structures on one hand.
While defining national identity through a lens that, for critics, seems inherently tied to Hindu culture, even if he framed it civilizationally, it's a paradox.
It really is. How do you reconcile that? The progressive stands on caste, which, as you say, was bold, with an ideology many see as exclusionary.
That's the central tension, isn't it? His proponents would argue he was trying to build a modern unified nation, using shared history and land, not religion, as the glue. To overcome caste and superstition through reason, but still ground identity in that shared Indic civilization. The challenge, of course, is how that shared civilization gets interpreted and who feels included or excluded in practice. His life really forces you to grapple with how complex forging national identity is, especially in such a diverse place.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Post-independence India, Savarkar is, well, he's not exactly center stage in politics, is he?
No, he remains somewhat on the margins of mainstream politics, though his ideas were certainly gaining traction in specific circles, particularly within the Hindu Mahasabha, which he led for a time.
Right. But there's one shadow that hangs over his legacy more than anything else, regardless of legal outcomes.
You mean the connection to Gandhi's assassination?
Exactly. The sources are clear. He was arrested in 1948, tried, and ultimately acquitted by the court. Lack of evidence.
That's correct. The court found no concrete evidence linking him directly to the conspiracy to assassinate Gandhi.
But despite that acquittal, the accusation just sticks, doesn't it? It deeply colors how people see him, even today.
It absolutely does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights how historical memory works, or sometimes doesn't work. How accusations, especially around monumental events like Gandhi's death, can overshadow legal verdicts. It shows the ongoing debate and, frankly, the reevaluation that happens with historical figures. These controversies have long lives.
And his own end was also quite deliberate, wasn't it?
Yes. He passed away in 1966, not quietly fading away, but through a conscious decision. Voluntary fasting until death, the practice known as Atmarpan.
Atmarpan, so a chosen end.
Described as deliberate, philosophical, and deeply nationalist in its own way. A final statement, consistent with his lifelong dedication, however you interpret his actions.
So let's circle back. We started by asking warrior,
Yeah.
saint, something else. After digging through all this,
Yeah.
what's the verdict? Can we even give one?
It seems the answer really is neither. Or both. Or, like you said, just far more complex than any single label. He certainly wasn't preaching peace like Gandhi. He didn't renounce the world like a traditional saint. But he did sacrifice comfort, endure immense suffering, and fight relentlessly. Not always with weapons, but with his mind, his words, his ideology.
A warrior of words, maybe?
A warrior with words, yes. A soldier of ideas. A strategist of revolution, adapting his approach over time. Think about it. He questioned religion but used a culturally defined Hindutva to shape national identity. He rejected nonviolence as the only path, but didn't wield weapons himself after his early phase.
A thinker who acted, an actor who thought.
Precisely. A thinker who acted and an actor who thought deeply. Was he perfect? No historical figure is. But was he fearless? Yes. Fiercely intelligent. Absolutely. Deeply committed to India's freedom and identity as he saw it. Undeniably. So maybe not a saint in robes, but perhaps a saint of sacrifice in his own way. Not a warrior with a sword, but a warrior of sheer will.
A complex, challenging figure. And perhaps, as our sources suggest, India needs to remember him for that complexity. Not just with debate, but with a certain dignity. We hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought. We encourage you, as always, to keep exploring these intricate historical figures. They tell us so much about the past, and maybe even about ourselves.